Exclusively for Hampton Roads, Cox Communications presents Cox Business Television.
Welcome back to CBTV. I'm Mike Braham. We heard in our first segment about the challenges ahead and the focus on education as the way to be prepared. So what are the employment trends now, and what should we be looking for coming up in our region? For that, we turn to Brenda Bigelow, a local recruiter with Don Richard Associates, and Judy Begland, president of Opportunity, Inc., the staff organization in the Hampton Roads Workforce Development Board. And thank you, ladies, for joining us.
It's a pleasure.
Judy, one of the things that was kind of really interesting is a couple of years ago, the word was that the workers really were in the driver's seat. There was a plethora of workers available, and they could kind of set the tone. How have the tables changed here in the last couple of years?
Well, in one way, they've changed dramatically. I think back then we were assuming that the baby boomers were going to retire and we'd have a worker shortage, and we certainly had a skill shortage, and so there was high demand for workers. Now we are going to have probably an excess of workers, at least in the short run, but we may still have a skill shortage. So from an employer standpoint, I think I would just suggest that as they begin to ramp up out of the recovery, they consider hiring earlier than they might have thought, because there's going to be a disconnect between skills and the supply of those skilled workers.
And when you're saying hiring earlier, is it just that it's taking longer to actually get the right people in the jobs?
I think that is a challenge for us. You know, there's always this, the worker says, I've got all this great skills and I can't find a good job, and the employer says, I've got this great job and can't find the worker with the skills.
Right.
So it always takes longer to make that connection than we think it should.
Okay. And Brenda, in your role, are you seeing that the hiring managers and really the business leaders, are they finding the talent that they need here, or are they having to look outside of the region and import people still?
It's a little of both. The problem comes into play when they look outside of the region is they don't have a lot of reload dollars to relocate those people here. So they are turning to local schools, firms such as mine, to sift through a little bit more of the many, many resumes that it's going to take a lot longer to go through to find those exact skills that they are needing.
Right. And as you're watching industries transition, much like the Ford plant has now left, an international paper, we've got a lot of manufacturing-oriented workers that are now trying, I guess, to be prepared for what we heard earlier, was that healthcare and education and even the military might still be, or the military-oriented companies might still be growing. That seems like that's a big transition. Is that really where you guys are focused on transitioning those skill sets?
We do. I mean, it's a big part of what we do. And you're right, Mike, it's a huge challenge for us. There is the recognition. A lot of high-paying jobs have gone overseas. But I think for Hampton Roads, some of the things to kind of fill the gap are going to be some of our high-tech, cutting-edge industries, and maybe you heard about them before, the modeling and simulation, robotics and sensors. Right. And a lot of people go, wow, that's just not where I am, and that would not be me. But I would suggest that if our employers can look at how they can use innovation in particular into their processes, whether they're the manufacturers we still have here, the healthcare industry, the maritime industry, and even tourism, to make us more efficient, more effective, and competitive will make the difference in higher paying jobs and better advantages here.
I see. And you were saying earlier when we were talking off camera that branding and having a company really maybe present its best foot forward was really important. Could you kind of share about how that impacts a worker?
Oh, I'd be glad to, Mike. Companies really need to be aware right now this is the time to brand themselves to be the company to work for. And they can do that by treating the present employees as best they can. Employee satisfaction is so important right now, not having the attitude of you're lucky to have a job, which can really be a toxic kind of environment and who would want to work for them at that point, as well as the internet present. Very, very important. Making it user-friendly. Again, inviting some participation on the website with the employees that are actually present.
Okay. One thing which I've been studying a lot about really is the demographic challenges of the boomer generation. And as you mentioned earlier, a lot of people maybe thought they were going to be able to retire, let's say, at 55 or 60, and now with the economic realities, that looks like that's going to be pushing later. How does that really affect the impact of boomers, specifically affecting how you all are looking at both job longevity and or that continuing relevance for the worker in the workplace?
I think that employers, I mean, historically have had a more difficult time considering older workers, you know, people over 50, how they fit in to their plan, because the assumption was, well, they may be here 7 years, maybe into 63 if I'm lucky. Right. But there are two realities. One is they're going to work longer, so they're worth the investment and they're worth the upfront training, but they come with tremendous assets. You know, they're more responsible, have had a long work history, and have a lot of savvy on the job. You know, so those are the trade-offs. And the reality is, in today's job market, even young people don't stay, you know, much longer than 5, maybe 7 years. So I think the opportunities are there for older workers. There might be times when they have to take a small salary dip, you know, so when they go into a company, it's not what's the wage, it's what's the opportunity.
Right. Well, that's really cool. And Brenda, from, you know, maybe to speak to that 50-year-old that now has found himself out of the current job that he's maybe grown into 15 or 20 years, they're now back on the market. What, from an employer's perspective, can I look for in those talents, as Judy just mentioned, or what encouraging words for how they might be better prepared to be, you know, facing this new reality?
I have had quite a few of those conversations, and I do encourage them to understand that they really bring those soft skills to the table. Technical skills can be taught. You know, they can become more computer savvy. Flexibility. I really try to get them to understand that you're not going to go in at the same rate you left. Right. So just staying cutting edge, getting online, and making a presence online, because that passive candidate search that client's going to be doing, they're going to come up in that search because they're out there. Right.
Well, ladies, I thank you so much for really all you mean to this community. You know, it's encouraging to see that we've got folks and organizations focused on how to make this transition, and for your personal involvement, but also for your leadership. We thank you guys very, very much, and thanks for being with me today.
Thank you so much.
Still to come, a local business leader answers 3 questions with unique insights, and the latest from the newsroom at Inside Business. You're watching Cox Business TV. We'll be right back.
I think it's extremely important for business to advocate for our public education institutions, both at K through 12, community college, and higher education, and that we take advantage of untapped assets.